Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Right or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. Today, we have a returning guest, James L. Rickard. So, welcome back to the show. Super excited to have you again.
Thank you very much. Great to be here, Randy.
So, for those of you that don't know, if maybe you're just joining for the first time, this is not our first time talking together. So you had joined us on episode 15. So you were like one of the very first guests on the show. And we had tons of fun.
We
And so we
sure
had to have you
did.
come back.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, hey, I've been looking forward to it ever since the first time we talked.
Yeah, it was great.
Yes,
So just a super quick for those who did not watch episode 15, super quick, tell us about who you are.
Okay, my name is James L. Rickard. I'm a writer from West Virginia. But the big reason I wanted to talk was because I went through a long period of depression, anxiety, but I've really come out of that, and that's why I'm here today to say, hey, life gets better, and you can be normal again, quote unquote normal.
Yes, exactly. I mean, really, what is normal?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I know my kid likes to say, why am I not normal? Or a lot of times he'll say to me, Mom, why can't you just be normal? And I'm like, what is normal though? Really? Like even some people they'll say something like, oh, this is just a normal part of my life. And I'll be like, well, it's not really normal. It's just that you're so used to it that for you it is normal.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, yeah, that happens a lot. Actually, okay, so the example that's popping to my mind that I wasn't going to say, but you know what? Screw it. I'm going to say it. So the example that's popping to my mind is for a lot of women after childbirth, like I can't remember the statistics, but it's like
Yes.
it's 90 something percent. Most women after childbirth, we have a trouble holding our pee. And so people just say, oh, well, it's normal that you leak after you have a kid. That's normal. It's not actually normal. It's that there's such a high percentage of us that we've considered it to be normal, but it's not. It's actually a weakening of our pelvic floor muscles and a lot of
Hmm.
other stuff going on there, and it can be fixed. So, things that we consider to be normal are just more or less things that have a large percentage of people going about it, but doesn't mean we have to live that way.
Well, you know what? You caught me a little bit off guard there. I didn't know we were going to talk about ping. I thought you were going to delve into the thing about postpartum depression, but that's a real thing also.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what the percentage of women that have it is, but my ex-wife, we were talking one time, and she said, I thought I was going to blow my brains out after we had the first one, and I had no clue. I mean, this went on. She seemed, again, quote unquote, normal,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
she said it was really bad. And I guess maybe we're so busy with the new baby and all, I really didn't notice it.
Yeah, between being busy with the baby and I mean, so personally, I haven't experienced postpartum depression, but I've experienced regular depression.
Uh huh.
Um, but I know just from that, it's not something that we want to share. It's not something that we want to tell people. We put on this fake smile, this fake normalcy of
Oh, I can
life,
write a book
right?
on that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's very similar to those that have postpartum is that you don't want to admit that you are now depressed just because you had a baby because this is supposed to be the best time. It's you're supposed to enjoy having your baby. But it's a really real thing and people need to talk about that.
Right. Now,
I would love for anybody listening, I would love to have somebody come on the show that has experienced that because we haven't had anybody yet.
I in my the last book that I put out called My Pet Zombie, it's like I kind of went into uh, not postpartum depression, but I talked about a woman who had been overseas in the Gulf War and kind of dove into a postpartum depression a little bit. And maybe if I extend that series, I'm gonna talk about a little more. But I didn't want to go overboard or anything. It's just kind of like part of her backstory. And the bad guys come and she freaks out and hides in the closet and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
So let's talk about this for a sec because I mean, if people want more um of like you personally, they can go back episode 15. So let's talk about this a little bit more because I have had a chance to actually read it. It's a nice, quick, short read, but it's intriguing, right? Following along these characters. The review actually is going to be posted next Wednesday, which is before this interview is coming out, so people can go back and read my review of it. So with that, you meet these characters, and I mean, at first you're meeting the police officer who he doesn't necessarily show that he has post traumatic, but I think if you were to extend the story, the series, which you need to, because at the end I turned the last page and I went, "What the?"
I set it up that way. Yeah, I did it on purpose.
I was so mad at you. So now you have to rate me a second one. I don't care if anybody else reads it. I need it.
There has to be more to that story.
There definitely is. It's like a setup. It's the very beginning, which is great, but now I need more. So when you follow that first character that you meet, though, who at first doesn't have PTSD, from what you read of what he has experienced, and I mean, think about any movie or show or book that you've read about zombies. I'm pretty sure these characters are going to have PTSD at some point, right? So it's kind of interesting then how you then meet that other character who hides in the closet, and she mentions it, but she doesn't come straight out and say it, but she mentions, I was in the war, and it comes up a couple times in the book.
I did that on purpose.
I had a feeling. So what made you want to do that, though? Like, what made you want to give that character that backstory?
I don't know. Yeah, actually, another character that I killed off was going to be the female lead in that story.
That's what I thought.
I said, this just isn't working for me, and I like Martha better, so she's the one that lived,
Yeah, I was surprised when the one character was killed, and I went, but she was like,
yeah,
all right. I'm not going to tell anybody who that name is because got to read the book, but I was like, oh.
Hey, you know what? I don't even remember anyway. I just read them and put them out there.
Yep, that's hilarious. But so I think it would be really cool to explore that more, that concept of PTSD, because it is such an important mental health crisis, really, that is being experienced by a lot of people.
Well, along those lines, one story that has always kind of made me peeved is the story of Audie Murphy, the most decorated soldier of World War II. Now, during the 50s, I think it was 1955, they made a movie called To Hell and Back, and he portrayed himself in that movie. But after the movie, it's a typical 1950s war movie. Is a problem. And I would like to see that movie remade by somebody like the Coen brothers and not focus so much on his war years, just kind of touch on it, because this guy had really bad PTSD after the war. I mean, think about it. He was 19 years old and he won the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I forget the exact age he went into the Army, something like 17 or 18, really young.
Baby, that's
exactly. And he made the rank of second lieutenant in the Army, and then he was in the reserves, and I think he went up all the way up to, I think it was major, something like that. But back to PTSD, it's like he had that for years after he got out of the Army, and he went to Hollywood, and nobody knew what this was going on, but he went through, I don't know, 2 or 3 wives, and this one woman said, like, he would wake up at night yelling in his sleep. And a typical PTSD story, he'd wake up at night, reliving his battles and things like that. And I just think that movie needs to be remade. I mean, heck, I've even thought of how I would do it myself. It would be too much like, but what I thought of was too much like the opening to Saving Private Ryan. It's like Audie Murphy.
Extreme beginning.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Wow.
Audie Murphy was killed, I think, in 1971 in a plane crash, and I think I'd have him in the plane going down, the plane's blowing up, and then the sound of the engines exploding just makes him drift back to World War II, and you pick it up there. It's just an
Yeah.
idea.
Kind of more the continuation of the story. And
Right,
I
yeah.
think this is the day and age that we are recognizing it more and doing more media about that, more movies
Well,
around mental health and stuff.
another thing that I really like is the fact that the NFL is making in America is making a big push on mental health,
Oh,
and every
good.
every Sunday when you watch their games, there's two or three guys. I mean, yeah, it's always different guys, but
Yeah.
they always talk like two or three guys. That say, "Oh gosh, I had all kinds of problems." I mean, but I think it's a little bit easier if you're making like 2 million a year or something like that. But
Right.
they're still talking about depression, anxiety, that type of thing. So it's and then the thing about back in the Olympics, Simone Biles dropped
Yeah.
out. I thought, hey, the girl's got to do what she's got to do,
Yeah.
and along that time period, also you had oh gosh, I can think of her name. I can't. I mean, I can see her face, but I can't think of her name. Real cute tennis player. Um, I don't know, but anyway, and she dropped out, and she was, I think it was in Wimbledon or something, I don't know, and everybody's ragging on these people, and I'm thinking, hey, it's like, I've been there, I know what it's like. You're trying to please everybody but yourself, and at
Yeah.
night you can't even sleep.
Well, exactly. So actually, you brought up a really interesting point there when you were talking about the football players, and you kept saying they talk to a bunch of different guys.
Hmm.
Me and my husband, like 2 weeks ago, I think we were having a conversation around the stigma and men specifically, and how
Yes.
men specifically don't want to come out and talk about
Well, the odd thing is, it's like even the people that I consider safe to talk to and talk about these problems, I know that women are a lot more sympathetic than guys are. Guys, I mean, they say, "Oh, gee whiz, that's terrible," and they may say, "Well, tell me something about it," and then it lasts for like 15 minutes. Whereas you talk to a woman and it goes on and on and on, and you end up saying, "Okay, that's enough."
it. Yeah. So from the conversation that I had with my husband, he was saying on how men don't, and this is paraphrasing what he told me,
Hmm.
because I mean it was 2 weeks ago, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But he was saying something along the lines of how, and we were arguing that it is that he was saying it's not a stigma, I was saying it is a stigma. And so in his paraphrase is that men don't want to talk about it because people don't believe them anyways, because guys are supposed to be strong, so it's just not a thing that can happen.
So
And
what?
I go, and that is why it is a stigma.
Hmm.
That is the whole reason I'm saying it is one. So eventually he did agree with me that it is a stigma when I explained to him what that actually meant, because he kept trying to say it's not, because in his mind a stigma meant you were constantly being bombarded with people saying you're wrong. And that's not really what it is. It's that internal feeling coming from society's norms, again going back
Yeah,
to that normal
that's the
thing.
thing that always got. It still gets to me that what society thinks it is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. If society, and that goes back to, those movies you were talking about, that your typical 1950s war movie. They
Hmm.
don't talk about the afterwards. They talk about
Right.
how strong these men were, and they totally were. Don't get me wrong; they were amazing. But if we don't give people the space to discuss what they are feeling, then all we're doing is setting them up for failure.
Right. Exactly. Along those lines, talking about movies, there's a really old movie. It was made in 1946 called "The Best Years of Our Lives." That it's not a war movie, but it's about after World War II. About
Okay.
guys coming. It's a real good long movie too. So it's really good, but really long. But it deals with three characters, and it talks about talks about it doesn't bring it out, but it talks about PTSD, and just in general, guys trying to adjust to civilian life after going through the horrors of war. It's a great movie, and
All
I
right. So
forget
say the name of it again, so everybody.
best years of our lives. And it won, oh gosh, 3 or 5 Academy Awards. I don't know. Nothing really major, but it was nominated for major stuff like Movie of the Year, that kind of thing. But it's still one for things like cinematography. It's a black and white movie, but still, it's like some of the cinematography is great. I mean, there's one scene in there that's really breathtaking. It was the guys are in the front of a B-17 bomber. It had a glass nose. They're watching the ground come up. That was pretty cool. And then they visit an aircraft graveyard, where they have all the planes they're going to dismantle for scrap metal. That was pretty cool. And it's like, whoa, wow. It's hard to think in a black and white movie that stuff's going to look cool, but it did.
So, a movie that I just watched this year that was really good around like mental health was Writing on Bathroom Walls, and it's on Netflix, and it follows this teenage boy
Hmm.
who is going through hallucinations and dealing with schizophrenia and having that stigma of not wanting to have people think of him as crazy.
Uh-huh.
And I think they did a really good job because it's a very delicate subject, but I was really blown away with that movie. And it had its humorous parts too, of course. So that's good.
Well, I'm even having gone through it myself. I mean, you've got some humorous times in there, stuff I look back on and kind of shake my head and say, "Oh wow, man!" But it's
Yep.
like, yeah, it's got to be that way,
Yeah, we have to laugh at ourselves sometimes.
right?
Right?
Exactly.
So let's go back to that topic that we're talking about and men and stigma and mental health.
Okay.
Did you experience that?
Yes, I did, and like I said back in the other episode, I mean, people would kind of shy away. They think you're gonna be walking down the street naked or something like that. And they just never knew where you're coming from. And it's like I realized like I gotta be just a little more reserved and quiet here just to kind of deal with these topics and see what happens. And it's like maybe people thought I was weird. I don't know, but I was being weird because they were being weird.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because when people act weird around you, like I know when people act kind of different around me, it makes me feel even more awkward. And then I feel like I'm acting even more strange because
Yes.
I'm trying to mask and kind of mimic what they're doing, but they're being odd. So it makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like I've seen where I've been filmed when things aren't going well, and so somebody's acting kind of standoffish or something, and I'm just who knows what I'm saying, just saying anything, maybe cracking jokes, and they're not good jokes. They're maybe crass or just, so it just you just see things going downhill.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. So in those situations, what would you have wanted people to do?
You know what? I would have wanted people maybe to lean back or step back just a little bit and not try to I don't know, make me feel quite as comfortable or something. Just be themselves. I mean, it's so much easier if people just relax. It's easy if they relax and make you, and then you can relax. It's like
Yes.
a guy I didn't know at all, Jesse, and he was doing some work, and he was waiting for some. He's waiting for some paint to dry, and so like we just sat back and we were talking, and we both had a cup of tea. But I mean, it's that kind of thing. I mean, he was really a different guy than me, but it worked out. He's great. I thought it was great.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I love that you just act like yourself,
Yes.
right? Like you don't have to put on a show. You don't have to act different. Just be relaxed. Be whatever your normal is.
Yeah.
Not society's normal, your normal. And I
Yeah. I mean,
think that's why we connect with certain therapists more, right? Like I've talked to some and they don't they seem like therapists. You know what I mean? Like they seem like really
exactly.
cool.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
comfortable.
Well, like I kind of I may have mentioned before in our other talk. I've had two therapists, and the first therapist it just didn't work out really well, and that's part of it right there. She acted like a therapist. She seemed like a therapist,
Mhm.
and my other therapist, granted, it took a lot longer, but we worked on a lot more, and we got along really well. And I owe everything to her. Really, is like it took a long time. She pulled me out of my funk and got me to be a normal guy.
Yeah. I love how we keep throwing that word normal around,
Normal,
even though
yeah.
both of us have already agreed we don't like it. But it's
I
like,
was
what
trying to
other word do
say
we
that.
use?
Yeah. And,
It's
and I was thinking so hard. I can't say normal again, but
I know, but
there it was.
what word do we use to describe it? I think maybe we
Yeah.
need to come up with a whole new word to use. Um, yeah, I do remember that you had mentioned that in the other episode, how you changed therapists because the one just wasn't really working. And it's a tricky thing to find that person that matches you. And
Yes.
and that first therapist might not have been right for you, but she could be right for somebody else.
Right. And she was good as far as that
Yeah,
goes, but just not, it didn't click.
yeah, not for you
Right.
specifically.
Right.
Yeah. And that's just it. If you go and you meet somebody and you're like, this is not working, don't be put off of therapists. Go,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Right.
this one particular person isn't working. Find another one. Because it's just like when you're meeting people and trying to make friends. You're not friends with everybody you meet. Some people you
Right.
click with and some people you don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when it comes to that stigma, just because we didn't talk about stigma too much in your last episode, um, how did you finally decide enough is enough? I don't care what other people are going to think about it. I'm just going to do what's best for me.
Well, what I did, it may not work for everybody, and maybe it makes me sound like a jerk. I don't know, but I kind of reduced my circle of acquaintances. I was sitting around one night saying, okay, now who's the good person, who's the bad person, and basically just eliminating the toxic people from my life. And the next thing I
Okay.
know, it's like, I mean, I didn't have a list of friends, a physical list, but
Yeah.
in my head, I said, yeah, I stopped seeing him and stop worrying about him and that kind of stuff.
And that's such a good point because if you are surrounding yourself with people who are toxic, just because you've known them for 30 years, for 40
Right,
years,
exactly, yeah.
that doesn't mean you have to continue to talk to them just because you've known them for that long. You'd think over that length of time they'd stop being toxic.
Yeah, yeah, that's a real good fact right there. And I got to the point where I said to myself, he was a jerk in high school. He's still a jerk. It's like,
Yeah.
why bother?
Yeah. We always, I shouldn't say we always, but like a lot of people, myself included, we think because I've always known this person and then we have to stay friends. I don't know why. We clearly do not have a healthy relationship for whatever reason, right? But yet you continue to reach out to them, you continue to talk to them, and they continue to belittle you or make fun of your circumstances or whatever it happens to be. If that person is there, then you really need to look at that situation, like you were saying, and go, is this person helping me or hurting me?
See, along those lines, something else that really works, and we did talk about this the last time. You make that physical list of pros and cons. And you may have a lot of cons and very few pros, but what happens, you find out that something you're worried about has so many cons, it's not even worth being concerned about anymore. And I think that's a real secret right there to freeing up yourself, and because it's so bad, and you're lying there at night, lying awake, losing sleep, saying, "Oh man, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to fix this?" And as it turns out, it's not worth fixing.
Yes, I love that. We're constantly trying to be problem solvers, but sometimes the problem just needs to be let go of instead of fixed.
Well, that's a good thing right there. Let go of it, because again, like I said, that list of pros and cons, something may matter to you, but there are just so many cons on there that it's beyond your ability to fix. And you've just got to accept that and let it go.
Yes, exactly. That's
And,
such a good
it,
point.
it may be hard, but that's what you got to do.
Yeah. So what kind of, I know that you've got another book in the works, of course, not my part two, mind you. So tell us about what you got going on.
Okay, well, um, I got a dog here going crazy. I don't. Let's see. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. Okay. The mail's going really slow, so I haven't got my copies yet. But I do have mock up here. It's called Return of the Ant People, and it's kind of a sequel, a follow-up, whatever, to an earlier book that I wrote called Treasure of the Ant People. Except in this one, again, a lot of the characters I use, Joby and Charlie, they're together naturally. But there's also Joby has a wife. I mean, not Joby, but Charlie has a wife now. And so she's in the story also. And it becomes kind of a, you got to remember this is like in the late 20s. So it's like, it's kind of a sexist thing. But once the action gets going, his wife, Kate, comes into her own. And I won't say that she really saves the day, but she helps him out of a couple of bad spots. And it's kind of surprising to everybody, but it's a good surprise.
Awesome. And so when is that going to be out?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, it's out right now, but like I said, the mail's going kind of slow, so I haven't even got my copies yet.
Perfect. So people can find that on.
Yeah, okay, again, just like all my other stuff, it's on Amazon. All you gotta do is, Google that title, Return of the Ant People, okay, and, it'll pop up for you, search for my name, James L. Rickard, and they'll show you all of my books.
Yes. And that's always the best way to do it, I find, because then you not only get the one you're looking for, but then you can see all of the stuff.
Well, like I kind of alluded to, it is a series, and you get onto my page with all my books, and hey, you may like the whole series. I mean, you got to look at it this way: the guy was born in 1870. He went through the Wild West and all this kind of stuff, and now it's 19 in the 1920s. What happened between then and now? And
Yeah.
it shows a progression of the way he came along.
Yeah. And probably the progression of society because a lot of changes happened.
Well, that's true, but you know what? He gets into so many weird jams. It doesn't reflect society that much. I mean, you got to look at it this way. And people, underground dwellers, flying saucers. So
Oh yeah, it's not based totally in reality.
no, it's really weird though, because it's like you're riding along, and all of a sudden you can't look up on your smartphone or something like that. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, they didn't have smartphones, so they've got to use a map, or
What?
something like that.
Jeez, it's so funny you say that. My kid is taking geography this semester and looking at maps, and he's like, I could just Google this. And I'm like, yeah, but what if you're in a dead spot and there's no internet? You need to know how to
Exactly.
use a map. Or if there's a zombie apocalypse, like you gotta have
There
maps.
you go. Yes.
And where can people follow you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm all over the place. So many, I had to write them down here. Okay. Twitter, Facebook, Goodreads, Amazon, Instagram, and there's one I like too. For a lot of reasons, there's a spot called All Author, and I have a page there. My books are there, and they are really great. If you're a writer, they're real helpful. They do a lot of artwork for you. So many things, cost money, but believe me, this is well worth it. And also, another reason I like them also, although I haven't quit or anything like that, it's not once you sign up, it's not an automatic renewal. It's like they'll send you a thing. They say, "Hey, you got a month left. What are you going to do?" And that's it. You don't hear from them again. It's not like they're going to
Right.
hassle you or anything, and it almost makes you want to renew with them.
Yeah, 'cause they're not pushy.
Right.
Oh, I
Very
like
not
that.
pushy, and like I said, a lot of help.
Okay, okay. So that's perfect. And those links will, of course, be down in the description below so that people can very easily find your links, get a hold of you, and of course, get their hands on your books. So thank you again for joining me for the second time. Always fun to chat.
It was, yes. And like I said, with what you do and stuff, it really helps people. I've watched a lot of your YouTubes, and do what the doctor says, and things get better for you.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Reading. Bye bye.
I hope everybody enjoyed that episode. If you have not watched the first episode with James, go back. Episode 15 talks a lot more about his journey with depression and finding the right therapist to fit with what he was going through. As well, make sure you hit up the links down below. Always like and subscribe to the channel. Share these episodes out with everyone because we have such an important message to share. If you want to support the channel, we do have a merch store. 10% of the proceeds go back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. And we have Patreon where you get some behind the scenes footage and some behind the scenes writing. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly. Bye.